Uh, the POIs only in the chat, please. I'm gonna take one for closing, but don't turn on your mics. Only do it in the chat. Um, give me 1 second. I'm gonna set up my notes. Okay, I'm gonna start on 3, 2, 1, go. Three main interests in our case. First of all, we're going to explain why we have the emotional necessity of moving forward romantically. Second of all, we're going to prove why we want better economic condition. Third of all, we're going to prove why, as Joseph, we have the capacity to resignify Prague, even if it's not the Prague that I used to know when I was young, etc., in order to beat oppositions in all their scenarios. Let's be clear with the first argument. The emotional necessity of moving forward is very important here. As Joseph, I understand that much of my life in Denmark has been definitely by grief. After my wife's death, I lived as she was still alive, speaking when she was at her grave, maintaining all the things that the infolight said. When I met Irena, and this is very important in Prague, something changed in me. For the first time in decades, probably, I felt that the possibility of connection come back to me, and this is the reason I want to maintain this. Because this month is not casual; it's psychological, deep in the mind of Joseph. Four reasons why I want this. First of all, I have shared trauma and identity. Both Irena and I are returnees. We know the pain of the exit, the dislocation of coming back to a homeland that feels both familiar and foreign. This creates a level of emotional depth that no one in Denmark could ever have access. Second of all, this generates a break in the cycle of the grief. Psychological note that prolonged grief often keeps people stuck unless they build new attachments or new relationships. Irena represents that bridge. She gives me a way to resignify my wife's past while moving toward to a new emotional life. Third of all, this generates emotional safety and trust. Relationships built on common history develop trust faster the trust. With Irena, I don't need to translate my experience of fears. She already understands that makes the bond unique and resilient. This is very clear. The impacts of these are four. Three, first of all, this generates psychological well-being. By breaking out the circle of mourning, I would protect myself from depression probably, and from emotional decline that inevitable comes with age when I am alone for long periods of time. Second of all, this gives me the possibility of having family and legacy. If I remain in Prague, I still have a chance to at fatherhood, build a home, for example, or generate legacy. That's something that in Denmark is completely more difficult because I am isolated and I am attached to the memory of my wife that is already dead. But finally, this generates personal renewal. Staying with Irena at Prague transformed me and forms from a man that only thinks on the past to someone that is choosing the future. Everybody would like to move on. I prove a lot of reasons why with Irina I have a particular connection that probably I don't feel in a lot of time. So I want to stay there and be happy. Second of all, the economic stability and why this is so important. We are Joseph. I know that what this means to live with financial struggles. When I go to Denmark on the 70s, I did not, for example, arrive as a skilled professional with a lot of opportunities. I arrived as an exit. For decades, I have worked in low-paying jobs. I don't want this anymore. I want better conditions. Now, for the first time in my life, they have offered me a better condition job where I can start earning significantly more money. I don't wanna
POI.
let this in the chat. You don't hear. Second, why this is so important. First of all, material security in the middle age. I am in my 40s, as the info like say. This means I can no longer rely on the optimism of the youth people that I'm gonna find better life conditions after. I must secure my financial foundation now if I don't want to suffer when I am old. Continuing in Denmark with low pay earning means that when I am old, I'm gonna be dependent and insecure, and I'm gonna regret. Second of all, this has a psychological impact on my economic status. A better salary does not only buy comfort, it also restores self-respect. For many years, I felt myself diminished working jobs for the underpaid, knowing I was capable of more. In Prague, they recognize this me with a better pay. I want to have this psychological recognition. But finally, this generates opportunities for my family and new relationships. The economic stability is a precondition for building all commodities with my life, with my family, with my new family, for example, and my new relationship. In order of that, if I wanna I wanna pursue my relation with Irena. I know that I need this job, and these two reasons maintain me in Prague. What are the impacts of this? It's clear, right? Quality of life. I can secure my future. I can feel self-worth increasing. I can comparative valorate these benefits because I don't have this in Denmark. The conclusion of this is very clear. At this point of my life, financial stability is a necessity. A higher paying job in Prague gives me security and the ability to build a better future. I don't want to throw this to the trash. Point from closing.
You have to engage with the fact that the society here is going to discriminate against him and hate him because he's different, because he moved.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna explain that. This is the last argument on my case. Why we have the power to resignify the homeland? Opposition is gonna say Prague is no longer Joseph city. It's full of tourists, reshaped by capitalism, etc., and that stuff. We say that this analysis misunderstood how migrants experience work when they return to their homeland. The fact that Prague has changed is true, but doesn't make impossible that Joseph resignify this, but rather it creates him opportunity to resignify his relationships with his homeland. A lot of mechanisms on why I believe as Joseph I can do this, and in that way I'm gonna take this decision. First of all, I can make selective reintegration through memory. Migrants who return do not have to embrace every aspect of the transformed city. Instead, they can put a specific scope themselves in their personal spaces, in the childhood neighborhoods, with their familiar streets, in the places he go when he was child. Even if Prague is full of tourists, there still exist places where I can feel comfortable. Second of all, I can generate identity reconstruction through continuity. Psychological, a lot of people can change the way they look the past. For example, in Prague, if they convince themselves that the new things that exist in Prague are better than the things in the past. These are things that he cannot do on Denmark, for example. Thirdly, we can generate agency over nostalgia. Remaining in Denmark would also mean living forever with longing and nostalgia for a homeland he abandoned. By staying in Prague, Joseph transformed this nostalgia into agency. He's no longer an exile fantasizing about the past, but now he's a citizen that is shaping the new life that he wanna make in his old country. The impact is very clear. We can generate cultural belonging, emotional reconciliation, and a positive reinterpretation and framework about the new things I see in Prague that probably are not the same that the things I watched in the past, but with a new wife, with a better job, and with a better emotional condition. I can deal with this in order to be happy. That's the most important interest of the actor.
Thanks, speaker, for a great speech. And now I invite the LO to start the case for opening opposition. Hear, hear.
Perfect. Am I audible and visible?
Yep, you are.
All right. Please unmute for POIs. I will not be looking at the chat. For any argument towards the actor to be credited in this debate, they need to prove the incentive and the capacity. The problem with opening government is that they prove a list of incentives for the actor to do this, but they never prove that this actor has the capacity to do this. I have three rebuttals to opening government before I go on to the constructive. One, this debate is not about economic incentives for the actor to be better. If this was true, they need to prove that why he has the capacity to do this. I would counter assert that this Joseph has lived a long life. They built a house. This assumes that he probably is not dirt poor. He's not homeless. He has a modest life. This also needs to prove that there's a missing warrant on opening government that he wants to climb a socio-economic ladder at the age of 40. Even if he started working as a small working man within Denmark, he has created a somewhat stable life for himself, and that is much more prior to them. So even if all of their analysis is true, I would assert that this just does not weigh over the idea of stability, which I'm going to prove later. But then secondly, even if this debate is about economic incentives, I'm unsure as to why a 40-year-old man has the capacity to go out and start a fresh life. This means that there needs to be much more catalyst for the push that they prove in terms of why he's likely going to want to incorporate himself in the capital market of Prague and then climb up the social economic ladder there. There's simply no capacity for this actor to do this. But I would assert that this debate is something about entirely else. This is not a debate about the economic incentives between Prague and Denmark. This debate is about stability and identity and where you accrue more guilt as an actor. Note, at a point of time in this motion, the info site states that he goes to the routines of what his wife did, etc., etc. This proves that this is symbolically important to him. These are not just routines he opted into. This is the way to actually construe fidelity with his wife even after she has moved on. This is simply not a coping mechanism, and it's not just grief that he could not go over. The biggest assertion that exists on opening government is that he's still going through grief. I would say that he's not going through grief. He's actually happy and stable in his wife. He has created a routine where he feels connected to her, and he greatly cherishes that. This means that there's some level of happiness and catharsis that he accrues by simply going to her grave and having conversations, and it's not missing her wife or grief, but some level of stability and the identity he has created. But then secondly, on stability and the symbolism of stability is that they live in that home. So even if his identity is unknown in Denmark, he has created his own identity within his domicile by creating that house with his wife. And this is uniquely important to him because he links his identity to that house. This is proximate to the actor, is above all and logically prior than anything opening government says. This is important because on the comparative, even if you go to this, you're seen as a returnee and one who fled away. This means that you face dual crisis of identity because one, your romance life is extremely new. You have to deal with a new romance at the age of 40, but then also reintegrate your identity where always people see you as skeptic. If the romance doesn't work out, if they don't accept you, you go through identity crisis. On the comparative, however, your identity is linked to your home and the life you built around you. But then also, this man is just not simply alone and isolated. There's no analysis for this on opening government. I would assert that when you live a routine life, you probably go to a local bar every day. You have a routine that you go to a job, you have friends. I think there is much more multiple actors that are existing within Denmark to give this actor the kind of happiness he deserves. And I think he's living a pretty stable life. This debate then becomes about stability and identity over instability and identity crisis. Why is this identity important? Because this actor is emotionally mature. You are not young and in love in your 20s. This means that this actor is likely going to make a have a decision making calculus that is much more mature emotionally. You're not likely going to flee with someone who found that you simply just bonded over in terms of the trauma you faced back in the 90s, or you probably see your hometown just being different entirely. This means that the sustainability of the romance has to be proven at opening government. At a point of time they don't do. We have counter analysis to prove that this actor prioritizes identity more, is emotionally mature, is probably going to stay in Denmark because he proves that his identity is much more proximate. But this also means that this is short, like on their side, it's extremely short-termistic in nature, but the identity on our side is locked up. The added burden then on opening gov is that they have to prove that he is going to sever this kind of stability. It's just not that you have stability and identity. It's just that for the first 1 year that you don't go to your wife's grave, or you probably miss the anniversary in Prague, it becomes extremely hard for you emotionally and psychologically. They need to defend that why this actor is going to not just come back, or probably is going to willing to take that emotional harm, or have other actors that are going to supersede his emotional guilt that he faces when he misses the first anniversary. He doesn't go to his wife's grave, or probably celebrates the anniversary, or forgets the anniversary. What is the logical implication of all of this analysis? The most important thing is this actor then faces some form of guilt, and they have to concede with this. They can't run the soft case on economics. They need to prove that why they're going to, after the 5th minute, why they're going to have, how they're going to deal with guilt on their paradigm. I would assert that this guilt comes in multiple ways. This means that you probably have memories that you're linked to emotionally. These memories are always going to be compared with your new life and new love. This means that the regret compounds, and the love that you feel for someone else is always going to be compared at the cost of the love you had with your previous wife. This means that this love is more likely to never be able to achieve good fruition because it's always in comparison to your previous life. But this also means that you probably this guilt is like non-shiftable to other things, because this guilt is always going to stay in one form or the other. This is not guilt that you can overcome through like talking about other experiences. Cause note, the analysis here is very simple. Before that, go ahead. Closing preferably.
Yeah, if you're greasing it likely means you haven't moved on.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Opening, do you have anything?
Yeah, even if that's true, it's true that I'm gonna feel guilty in proposition. You need to compare that with the sensation of never being happy in opposition, because I can never rebuild my life.
I'm unsure as to why you are not happy in Denmark. There are multiple reasons why you're happy, because you've made a life for yourself. At a point of time, this is true because you probably went through the motions and narratives. Literally, there's nothing on the info slide to state the emotional state of the actor. This means that it has to be analyzed by teams. We give you analysis at opening option why you're likely to be stable. And this is not about happiness and sadness. Happiness and sadness is like, even if that's not the data, we prove that you are much more stable. Your identity is linked to this house and that you have built. You have probably rituals that you remember at every point of time. This means newer intimacy is always going to be compared with the regret that kicks in at a point of time you miss or forget your wife's anniversary, or probably you see something that reminds you of your wife. This means that you break the fidelity that you have built up in your head, that is the one thing that you knew for sure at a stable period of time. But then also you just simply can't work through this guilt, because note, you are 40 years old. You probably don't have the emotional catharsis that you get by following new life. You have built 40 years of experiences with your wife, and now you're letting go of that. So you simply can't just work through this guilt, even if you get, like, I don't know, like more sex on their side or more money on their side. I think this is extremely certain on opening option, because one, guilt is true for a longer period of time, and this debate is not about economic benefits you get. Thank the speaker for a great speech, and now invite the DPM to continue the case for opening government. Here.
Am I audible?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you. I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1. I want to do 3 things in my speech. First, talk something about capacity, that I think that maybe all misunderstood some of Diego's speech. Second of all, about a comparison on how happy you are in a city in compared to the other. And third, how the actor right now have in emotionally and rationally pressures to take the decision that is moving constantly to Prague. And then some waking. Let's start with capacity. I think that all misunderstood which actor we're talking about. We're talking about Josef, who precisely in this moment, he's just changing for a change of their life, right? There's the reason why he already go back, travel to Prague. He giving him the possibility to reconnect with someone, with Irena, and even though he's considering a job offer. This clearly demonstrates that right now Joseph has agency to change things in their life, and he has the incentive to try to push all their effort on that. The second point here is that he has suffered enough to say it's enough, right? What I'm talking about here, he already suffers a lot, but because in up, he already live a lot of years in Denmark, suffering, remembering their dead wife. This means that he is exhausted and frustrated because he can't continue in this way. This means that you have a clear push for yourself to try to do your best to move on, and I think that you have the mechanisms to do it. And the third point here is that Joseph had really make like major life decisions under stress and in particular moments. For example, when he immigrated in first life, when he tries to build a life in Denmark, even if he was a migrant. This means that he have a pattern of resilience, and his story basically proves that in moments of difficulty, he does act in a mature way, even when he was younger. So we think that right now he can do it in a better way. This means that of course he has the capacity to move on. He just need to put all of him on it. Second point here about the city. Look, in Denmark, Joseph is not happy at all. He always felt like a migrant, right? No matter how many years he lived there, no matter how polite people were, no matter if like there's no one that is attacking him, he speaks like a different accent. He carries a history that he can share with the people, right? He have different cultural relations, right? And he constantly feels alienated. The only thing that makes him to feel different is their personal life, but with their dead wife. But what happened with this? Basically, Joseph never developed any other strong bond there because he had been living since her wife death in a shadow of them, in a shadow of his dead wife. So his entire existence is contingent on going to the grave and talk to her, even if she's dead, to waking up in the morning and think on her. So everything is attached to her. This means that you are in a constant trap of sadness that you can't move on, and this makes you completely unhappy. And even if you try to move on, you always see something that remember her and remember the good moments that you lived with her, and you can't never live again. So you have a chance right now to not see that place again, to not having something that remember her again. So in that sense, you only can develop strong bonds when you move on, and I think that that's why you prefer to move. Because even if in our work case, like maybe Prague can be hostile, it's not the same as before, at least you have someone that can help you to support all that problem, that is Irena. Second, you can resignify the city because you have a strong remembrance of the past that remember over other moments where you were happy there. And third, you have a good job, something that you have never had before, and that makes you an additional incentive to have money to do whatever you want with that. Before continue closing.
Yeah, like
Opening.
this relationship is not permanent, right? Because this relationship was just nostalgia. They even slept together. There's no emotional connection like that he has with his wife.
I'm not sure how. I'm not sure if that's true at all. I have like two main responses. First, I don't think that's true. You have met her and you really believe that you can have a deep connections with her because the shared experiences that you have. So I'm not sure if you can say that it's just nostalgia. Second, I don't think it's nostalgia at all because you have been so connected with your wife for a lot of years and you have not like have this situation with any other person. At least the info like that does not say that. So second, but third, even if it's nostalgia, we're not contingent on that because the existence of Irena makes you to believe that you can move over. So even if you break up with Irena, you stop being with her and that stuff, you believe that the existence of her makes you to feel that you can be in love again. Independent if it's Irena or not. Of course, we think Irena is gonna last because what Diego explained. But in my worst case scenario, we think that it's not contingent on it. You can still move over and feel that you can make a good life there because you have a good job that you have never had before. So now to weighing here in terms of emotionality and in rationality. Let's talk about emotionally, right? In this moment, for first time in your life, you think that you can move on, right? It's an experience that you had not experienced for years alone. Again. But second point here, the feeling of dopamine, oxytocin that you're feeling right now with Irena, it's something that you haven't experienced in years. This means that this feeling is extremely intense in right now in the actor's head. Therefore, the amount of we need to be in the head of the actor because in the actor emotion, so in emotional way, you have enough pressure to take this decision, even if it's not rationally correct, if what obsessed, or you can like weigh it in a rational way, in an emotional way, you have enough pressures here for this, and also for the economic possibility. You're in your 40s, right? You think that you have failed and you can be excited. That you can be successful in life because at that age you think that you should be in a better position. Right now you have that position, so it's a unique opportunity that pressures you to believe that you need to take it because it's now or never. In a rational way, we also win this, right? Because you're comparing, right? It's going to stay in a place where you think you don't belong anymore when you remember and you feel that are you constantly sad, or to try to move on, to have a good job, to try to have a legacy, right? If we compare the amount of benefits that you have if you move on, or at least the chance or the potential benefits that you can get when you are taking decisions, of course that you take the decision that we are defending. For that reasons, we think that we win in opening government. Thank you.
Thank the speaker for a great speech, and I invite the DLO to close out the top half as a whole. Here.
Audible?
Yes, you are.
Great. I'll take a POI towards the beginning, so just have it ready. First, I want to push out the economic claim claim, let's be honest, we are talking about Denmark. You have some of the strongest social protections out there. So even if you're in a low paying job, you're likely going to be not kicked out of this job. Along with that, you have the government which takes care of you because of the tax collection. This means it's easy for you to get healthcare. It's easy for you to get like any sort of police protection and stuff like that. So even if you get some increased economic benefits in Prague, I'm unsure as to why these economic benefits lead to a better life for you as Josef, because the services you get is probably just as bad. The government is a lot more corrupt, and like, you know, you just can't rely on it for consistency. Along with that, you have to shift everything. You have to like probably take all your things from like Denmark to Prague. This seems like an expensive process in and of itself. Here is what is most important in this debate. I think Josef is emo. Josef is a person who is forever in love. There are three reasons for it. Number one, I think when you look upon your previous memories of someone, you're biased towards these memories. Humans have this internal bias where you look upon like the good experiences and you don't want to think about the bad experiences. Why? Because the bad experiences are always harmful for you. They make you think of things that you regret doing, things that were not pleasant. So in most instances, you tip towards experiences which were happy and good. So every single time that you think about your dead wife, you only think about the good experiences, the good memories. This compounds over time because with time, you forget about the bad experiences because you don't constantly think about them. But your opinion of your wife and how much you loved her keeps increasing with time. Second, I think this is your way of living life. In most instances, you live your life by looking upon your previous memories. And if you live like your every single day with your previous wife being the habit, doing the habits that you had with her, in most instances, this keeps you in love with this person. And third, I think this is part of the good life. If I'm in a state where I have to move from Yugoslavia to Denmark, it's probably that the conditions there were really, really bad. So when I go to Denmark, I establish a much better life. And a big part of this life is now my wife, because when I was in Denmark and I was trying to find some stability and I was trying to be happy, my wife was there with me in every single moment. So every single time you try to think about the good parts of your life, you relate your wife to it. So in most instances, Josef is forever going to be in love with his previous wife. I'm unsure as to why it is going to be so easy for Josef to move on and just, work out this new relationship with Irena. If Josef is going to be so in love forever, how does Josef react when Josef is so emo and he has to start a new relationship? But before that, POY, closing. 3, 2, 1, opening.
Yeah, but we don't need to forget the memory of my wife. I just need to resignify her
Yeah.
memory and
Getting to that.
the past.
I'm getting to that. Okay, getting to that. Great. So we have established that Josef is emo as fuck no matter what happens on either side. Number one, I think what this leads to is actually a lot of dependency. If you're moving on and you're living in a new city, you're living in a place where you don't know anyone and probably a lot of people are not nice to you, you probably end up over depending on Irena because this is the only person with which you can bond upon something. This is the person that tries to give you comfort and maybe you do feel happy about it. So if opening government says, oh, that there are endorphins and all of that stuff, I think that is true. But what this leads to is over dependence on Irena because you have absolutely no one else around you. You have left all your communities back in Denmark. But second, I think opening government saying that, oh, there is an incentive and capacity for you to change is actually a bad thing for Josef. Why? Because every single time, what you try to do is change yourself. You do try to forget your previous wife. You do try to forget about those experiences and the habits you had built every single day. You try to change yourself because you think you can build a better life with this new person. This means you try to give up parts of yourself. This is bad because in the process of moving on, I think you end up accumulating a lot of regret. The reason you do this is quite simple. I think anyone, even if Irena is like the nicest person in the world out there, it's going to be very difficult for them to accept that Josef is still in love with this previous wife. He still thinks about her every day, how he had tea with her, how he played with her and his dog every single morning, how he arranges his house with me the way he used to do with her. So in most instances, it's not just your internal compass that pushes you to like change and you have this incentive like OG talks about. I think Irena also pushes this upon you in implicit manners in small ways, and this leads you to have regret. Three things happen in regret. Number one, I think when you have regret and this guilt of your being in love with your previous wife and being in love with another person, it's hard to justify. In a lot of instances, humans externalize this regret and this guilt. This means you blame Irena because now Irena is probably the source of all of this unhappiness. Irena is the one that trapped you in this love and stuff like that. Second, I think this affects you on an everyday life. This is ever present. What does this lead to? I think this leads to your every single decision being then contingent upon this regret. You then being scared of moving on. You then being scared of ever going back to Denmark, ever thinking of these memories memories because you feel the guilt of it. Third, I think even if this is good for the actor, even if the actor is able to move on, will Joseph see it that way? I think in most instances, not. What happens when Joseph sees regret? I think three things. Number one, it's highly likely that Joseph is going to then disengage from this relationship. This means there are more fights between you and Irena. This actually leads to a lot more guilt because now you think that you left behind a perfectly good life in Denmark where you have had a good job, you had your stability, and you had your old wife's habits. Second, you obsessively think of your decisions. This distracts you from actually moving on and actually like creating these new loving memories. So every single time you create a new loving memory, you're distracted by your previous memories and you feel guilty about them. Third, I think you just miss your old home and your habits and your identity. This itself makes it much harder for you to move on. As long as all of this is true, I think this relationship goes to shit. Why does this relationship go to shit? Three explicit reasons. Number one, you feel regret and guilt like I proved before. Second, I think you have to adjust to a new city and a new job, which is something that you have not experienced before. Third, you have to adapt to a completely new person if opening government is right about like, you know, you having this incentive and capacity to change yourself for Irena. All of this, I don't know about you, but sounds pretty fucking tough to me. Being told that, oh, you have to shift your entire life to another country, which you probably don't have a lot of experiences of, somewhere where you're not going to be liked by a lot of people because these people just dislike you, and you having to change every single part of your identity to adjust to a new person, which will just make you feel guilty about your life, is something that is pretty fucking tough. As Joseph, what you want in most instances is probably just your old happy life back immediately. Why do you have more stability in Denmark? Two reasons for it. Number one, Siddharth already proves why you have your friends, your rituals, and your job that keep you stable, that keep you happy. Even if you're not the happiest person in this world, you're still content. As long as you're content, this can lead to happiness. And this leads me to the second thing. Why is stability in Denmark good? Because this means because the motion itself suggests Joseph is capable of hooking up. Joseph is probably capable of love and of new relationships. The problem is this new relationship will never work out if it happens in a place where Joseph is unstable because everything in his life has been uprooted and he's been put into a new foreign environment. You can only lead to this new relationship when you live a life of stability, when you take it slow, because you have your rituals, you have your like life around you, and you can adapt your new relationships into your previous life where you have these rituals, where you have your friends around you, where you have a job that you're used to. You bond, and if it's about, oh, you get to bond with Irena because she's an immigrant, yeah, well, a lot of fucking Yugoslavian immigrants went to Denmark. You can bond with another immigrant who came from there. So bonding itself is not a difficult thing. I think what you do is you leave Prague with the hope in Denmark that you can now move on because you have experienced this relationship. So in most instances, the stability in Denmark itself is the only thing that can lead you to a new, happy, fulfilling life.
Thank the speaker for a great speech and everyone for what was a great top half. And now invite the MG to start the case for closing government. Hear, hear.
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. Just to confirm, you can hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Just give me a sec. I'm just setting up my timer. And in the meanwhile, hi guys, my name is Hamza, Ide. And for PYs, any opposition team can verbally interrupt me, but please do so after the 5th minute mark. So I'm starting my debate in 3, 2, 1. Opening opposition in this debate is running a weird case because if Jose will hook up with other women, but he also religiously loves his wife according to the LO, and he cannot go like any action where he disrespect his wife. The memory he disrespect is so bad for him. It will bring guilt for him. I'm still not sure that how he's able to even hook up because all of these things also bring self guilt as well. That for instance, how he's disrespecting the memories of her wife. But also need to understand that guilt is symmetric because you are catching feeling for her according to the info slide. And if you leave her, this also means that you will still have a lot of guilt at, for instance, how you let go of a chance to have a better life as well. For instance, Irena was somehow like a gift of from God, but you, for instance, bottled this relationship just because of memories and all of these things. So guilt is like pretty much symmetric. But what we need to understand one thing, and this will be like the path of victory from the opening, from the closing government, that what, for instance, matters for him to the most. And secondly, how Irena is a better person. And lastly, for instance, all these things about guilt and all of these things, not as a big of a deal as opening opposition as well as closing opposition talking about. First thing is, what's proximate for this actor? O says that he has a routine and he's do a lot of things in, for instance, Denmark and all of this, etc., etc. But panel understand what they don't tell who is they're assuming that routine is equal to happiness, and they give no reason that, for instance, just because you have a routine, you are happy as well. Because there are many millions of people who are living like living zombies, where they are existing but are not happy. We need to understand one thing, that how is Jose is actually looks like. Number one, he had to leave his state. He had to leave behind the loved ones when, for instance, he was not relocated due to the Soviet war. But secondly, finally, when he felt that, for instance, life is on a good track, he married his wife. His wife died as well. But this person would be claiming. This person would be craving a lot of agency on their side. But they need a meaningful connection. Someone you can finally call yourself on. Someone who can reciprocate your feeling. Someone, for instance, this is the reason why something you can actually call yourself that this is my homeland and this is the place where I was coming with my loved ones and all of these things. And I think this is like the major reason why these actors need more proximity with the things that he's loved, and he requires proximity and he needs more ownership about his feelings. Why this homeland is actually good returning here, even if this homeland has changed. Because understand one thing, even if something has changed, that doesn't mean that the memories associated with this are changed as well. So for instance, if there was an ice cream place where Jose was going like when he was like in a child, he went there, he had memories there, he still remembers the taste of the ice cream. He still remembers that most of his friends actually came. He even remembers the shopkeeper who was, for instance, like super kind to him. Even if he goes there after like many, many years, the taste has changed, but his memories about that place is still there as well. Even if the shopkeeper has changed, but he still remember the voice of that shopkeeper. I think all of these things create some sort of connection, some sort of familiarity with this area. That, for instance, what was your first days? What were the friends that came in there? What were the topics that you were discussing and all of this thing? So even if this place has changed, I think there is still a lot of familiarity and a lot of connection that you can still derive from this, even when you are living in your, for instance, homeland after like many years as well. So like this feeling of familiarity isn't contingent of thing that to be exact same. This is like the major point we need to understand. But secondly, why Irene is better than the memories of the dead wife as well. So like simple comparative. She is alive and can accommodate his needs better. Why? Four things. Number one, Irene is an alive person. This means that person he has the capacity to be like rational and can for instance understand a feeling. This means that he has the capacity to reciprocate a lot of your feelings. Whereas when you are in the memories of your dead wife, all of the relationship is one-sided. You are doing dialogues, but all of these things are one-sided. Secondly, she can actually help you in a lot of ways. For instance, you need a shoulder to cry on, you need cuddles, you need some material benefit. You want to borrow her car and all of these things. She has the capacity to help you where your dead wife memories cannot. But thirdly, Irene identity is more proximate because, for instance, the world is changing. You have changed a lot as well. She is noticing you. She's the one that knows you more because she has seen your recent version. This is the reason why she can treat you according to your immediate needs. Or for instance, what exactly do you look like in the status quo? So your relationship with Irene is more dynamic and not stuck as was the case with your wife. But lastly, the self-hate element, which is also super important as well. Because understand one thing, at many moments you will also feel that you are a loser who is stuck in the memories of a person who is dead, rather than actually doing something for yourself or doing out or like making a life out of yourself. I think this is like the reason why Irene will make you less self-hate yourself, because now you feel like you are giving yourself a chance. Now you feel like that you are actually doing something rather than being stuck like a loser in the feelings of the someone. This is the reason why you would have less self-hate as well. This is all of this comparative mean Irene is better than the memories of your dead type. But lastly, and like the other comparatives, that for instance how the memories and all of these things are not a big deal as well. Even if you have a big guilt, I don't think this guilt would be like super substantial. Couple of things. Number one, humans act in a cognitive dissonant matter all the time. For instance, even if like let's say my partner has died and all of this thing, and I get to a relationship, other thing, I still can have respect towards my dead partner, but I can still love my current partner as well. This is like happening for many years, for many centuries. This is like happening everywhere as well. But like secondly, they kind of assume that Irene would be like super bad about this. She won't understand. She won't tolerate that you are in the love with your ex. They give no reasons that why it will happen. Info slide says that she is super understanding towards your feeling, and I think like it is super like persuasive as well. That for instance, how someone being respectful towards their dead wife is something that most people would respect. But like, secondly, even if that doesn't happen, you have access to therapy as well because you are rich. You are,
That's
for
true.
instance, actually planning aloud. Yes, Pierre.
So on one side, you might have guilt because you're forever in love, and on one side, you might have guilt from a hookup. Note, if on Gov, guilt is comparatively more, guilt is not symmetric. Symmetric means that the certainty or amount of it is equal on both ends, which it's absolutely not.
Perfect. Number one, even if you have guilt, you can go to therapy. There are other ways to remember your wife as well. But it was the burden that your LO took, that you love your wife religiously. So even if a hookup like would actually bring up some guilt, so you cannot say that guilt is acting good. But lastly, you have many other ways to remember your wife as well. For instance, rather than being stuck in your memories, you can go to the church and pray for your wife, or you can even occasionally remember some stuff about your wife and the memories that you shared, etc., etc. But lastly, even if the tipping point is about the resentment, I think resentment is something that you can deal with as well. Because understand one thing, Jose is rich. If you are rich, you have the capacity to insulate yourself from a lot of resentment or the racism around your family. For instance, you can go and live in a gated community where the security is super, super high. But secondly, you have therapy. You can go to the therapist and he will help you cope up with the racism and all of these things. But lastly, you have Areem who will tell you that you're important, that you are worthy of left. Like couple of abuses from a stranger doesn't define your worth. But lastly, you are literally 40 or something. So this means you are actually more mature. You have seen a lot of things in the life. So your capacity to internalize stuff, or for instance, you can have the capacity to understand that, for instance, what things should I take on my heart or what more. But lastly, I don't think the racism is a big issue. You're literally getting a well-paying job. So this means the racism is not as bad as opposition bench is talking about. For all these reasons, CG.
Thank the speaker for a great speech, and I invite the MO to start the case for closing opposition. Here.
Can you both see and hear me?
Yep, I can see and hear you.
Okay, so just give me a second. Just when I'm getting a timer. Oh, as I do that, shout out, thanks Henry. Uh, thanks to Ocom. This is a really good com. Yes. All right. And lastly, yeah, thanks to Isa, thanks to Sino, and thanks to God for labeling us people to pay for the call. So yeah, uh, I'll start the speech in three, two, one, go. From CO, we think that when a decision is supposed to be permanent, it is not merely about the emotional factors. We think when you say that a decision is permanent, when you are moving, there is urgency to that decision. We think when an idea is permanent, it is one which has high risk. So, because, like, I mean, if he goes to Prague, he is unlikely going to come back. Like, if he goes to Prague, it means that he loses the memory of his wife. It means that he's going to be looked at as an outsider. But I think comparatively, when he goes to Denmark, it means he stays there. It means you don't have the possibility to tap into the other side's benefits. This is important because when we look at his age, and I think this is what has been under-analyzed in the top half, and I think it's very important. Because when you look at like Joseph, he's like a 40-year-old. Like, what does a 40-year-old look like? One, he's not at an experimental age. So he's probably not like young, he's not like young and energetic the way he moved, during the war to find himself. So he's 40, he's much older. He's already had like a full chapter of his life. He's had a wife and he's not able to grow a community. What's the importance of this framing? What I'm trying to put for you here is that he's 40 years old. It means that he's looking for stability, he's looking for permanence, right? But most importantly, that his age also weighs in heavily on the type of decision that he makes. Why is this important? Because we think that when you're 40 and you're making a decision as to where to move, the most important thing for you is the community. Why is community important for you? Not at 40, it's often very difficult for you to make friends. So the type of social that you want belonging, the type of social fabric that you engage with is very, very important. This is to say that you want a place that will love you, you want a place that will accept you, you want people that will support you. Not. I think the problem here is that on side government, you don't recognize this. And we're going to explain to you why the community in Prague is bad and why that does not become like important for him. First of all, why do we think the community in Denmark is good? A couple of reasons here. One, I think they have shared experiences. So this is to say, he's built a work life. He's made work friends, he's made work friends and work colleagues. And also, he has his wife's family, people who empathize with him, people who know him for who he is, people who don't call him an immigrant. This is important because the shared lived experiences that he has in Denmark are much more extensive. It's not just his work, it's his community, it's his wife's community. This is important because even if OG says that, oh, he has like this like Irene lady and stuff like that, we don't think she's as important because not they only bonded because of nostalgia, something which is something which is probably going to get done. But most importantly, he has to also like deal with the fact that he's never going to be accepted. And I think this leads me to the next mechanism here about acceptance. Note, a fundamental part of community is being able to be accepted, especially for 40-year-old. Why? Because you're probably still dependent, you probably can't make friends. This is important because when you go to the grocery shop, you want someone to be able to help you. You want to be able to benefit from policies within the community that are there for old people. Difference is that you don't get this on side government side. Why? Because you have resentment for being an immigrant. Because not, I think this is very bad for you because you only left Prague because of the fact that you were running for a war. You were running to save yourself. So you always think about these people as being selfish people as to why they would resent you. But most importantly, this resentment is just not ideological resentment. It is physical resentment. Resentment when you go to the store. The fact that the people at the store selling to you stuff are resenting you. They look at you in different ways. They scorn at you. This is important because for a 40-year-old who's just lost his wife, who's still grieving, who's still attached to it, it's important because this is crucial for you. You require society to accept you because not you're already disillusioned in terms of your identity because this is your wife. You've built like memories around her and you've lost her. This is true because the info slide says you consistently go and talk to her. This is important because it means that you need some type of acceptance. And the problem is society is a prerequisite. So I think the top half chart is about like this economics. I'll read the economics, but more about the identity. And I think the most important thing here is that for you to access all those things is dependent on community. For you may have a good paying job, but the fact that your like workers and your workmates there also segregate you, they don't include you in after parties and all these things hard, especially on a 40-year-old. Before I take the POI, I really want you to know, panel, the most important part here, it's a permanent decision, and a person at his age requires community, requires colleagues at work who will help him overcome his new stage. Because look, on their side, you don't get that help. But before that, I'll take the POI from OG.
Most of the times people do things not because people want to do it because they don't think they have other alternatives. Now that Joseph has found a new woman, he wanna take this opportunity and move on because this is the most important thing for the actor.
So the thing is that he's not met this lady for a long time. He's only known her for nostalgia. But most importantly, I think to some extent, OO is right about the guilt and how you're going to feel that guilt. But most importantly, the extension from CO is not just about the extension of CO goes beyond that. Because even if he's with Irene, him and Irene face all this pain. Irene also herself will be facing pain. So I think it's very difficult for them to be able to reconcile that. But I think the most important part is that for him to even love himself, he needs to be accepted by the community. Because, and this is why, for example, we say echo chambers are bad because echo chambers create places where you don't have other different views. And I think that's the problem here because you rid him of the ability of a support system. Why is community important in this debate? Not community is like logically prior for you to be able to first of all, how you identify yourself, how you see yourself, you internalize these things. That's why community is important. And we think that extension on community and the fact that we proven that the community on the other side when Prague is going to be bad, but the community here is much more stable. They love you. But most importantly, why is community better than this like economics chart? One, he's 40 years old, so he's probably looking for a more long-term thing. He's not like he already had a chapter of his life. He's not trying to like own a Bugatti and all those different things. But most importantly, there's a diminishing returns on money because like money is we already see that money is not a big thing for him because he already stayed in Prague for this long time. Why is all of this important? It's important because the type of people you associate with tend to determine how you refer to yourself. He wants a long-term plan. Stand with CEO because CEO gives him a community that helps.
Thank the speaker for a great speech, and I invite the GovWhip to continue the case for government bench. Share here.
Just confirming if I'm both visible and audible.
Yep, you are.
Okay, just give me one second. You asked your chat is something for yourself. You grow up in a country of war, you move to a new country where you find the love of your life. After that, potentially you'll marry her and then you lose her. The important characterization that CG brings to you within the round is what the actor specifically looks at. Because this is not unlike any other actor that all of the other teams characterize for you within the round. This actor specifically is an actor that has been misplaced by their homeland in general as well, which likely means opening government idea in terms of how people value money over a lot of other things as well, or why they do need relationship in a lot of instances, might apply to a normal individual, but why specifically they apply to Joseph is something that we're unsure of. Similarly, coming from opening opposition, is they assert to a much larger degree why you actively derive meaning specifically from having this, and why even if you derive meaning, why specifically this meaning is good in general. So also proud to propose. I'm first going to take out closing opposition in the round. The first thing that closing opposition talks about, the premise of their extension is that you have a good community in general. But closing opposition fails to prove is why this community is likely going to be good. Because what I want to note here is in terms of the info side in themselves, we can acknowledge that the fact that Joseph is something that is pretty much capable in general because he is being offered a good job in Prague. The reason he's been not being offered a good job in Denmark likely means that there is much more level of discrimination that exists because people tend to hate immigrants much more than they tend to hate returnees in a lot of instances as well. But B, communities are likely going to exist on either side of the house. That is to say, you're likely going to find like-minded people. You're likely going to find the community of returnees in a lot of instances as well. But also, in a lot of instances, what CG specifically expands on, and this is going to directly clash with who you need the most, is having Irene specifically or having another person in your life. Why this is important in the round? Because understand this person has been going through a lot of trauma. This person has been going through a lot of loss in general as well, which likely means this person something that do have a lot of emotional requirement in a lot of instances. His previous wife is unable to fulfill any of this because it oftentimes can go to grace, but there is no reciprocation that exists. The reason reciprocation is something that is necessary because in that instances, in the absence of this, there are a lot of problems that you cannot share with anyone else than your wife in general as well. Specifically for an individual that actively feel displaced or actively feel their identity has been attacked in a lot of instances, you do need someone that you can actively talk to in a lot of instances as well. The stalking cannot be done in terms of friends or the community because there are a lot of private methods that you do not trust individuals with. But also, if he is someone that is in a low-paying job, likely means a friend that they have is also within the same infrastructure. The problems of the low-paying jobs a lot because they do worry about having food. They do worry about other problems within life in general as well. This likely means that your capacity for them to then share your problems with other individuals and actively demand certain sort of solace, actively demand certain sort of meaning or certain sort of emotional connection is something that is limited because these individuals are likely going to have their problems in a lot of instances as well. The reason then Irene is likely going to be good is twofold. A, we think we can likely assume that this person has likely talked about his previous fight with Irene because he's someone that from the info side clearly states that he's obsessed with his wife in general. Irene still choose to accept him and still choose to have a romantic relationship with him, which likely means she's someone that does not care about that. But B, we think generally to a much larger degree, if she is getting into someone with that is a divorce, that the wife hasn't done, actively do realize that there are likely going to be problems. The reason they're still developing romantic relationship is we don't think this is something that is a much more problem with the round. The reason this is important is because it actively takes away idea coming from closing opposition in terms of community, because it actively proves either A, the community that you have in in Denmark is likely not going to be that good, but even if they are good, they likely not have side. You specifically need someone that you have. Why this specific requirement is something that you get in general as well. And this is where I'm going to engage with opening opposition as well. Because the strongest force coming from opening opposition is to talk about that, oh, this is likely going to be symbolic. And notice the case contention that they have. At first, they're likely going to say that, oh, no, you're not too deep in love, or you're not like a mad person that is grieving in a lot of instances. But it's just like you want symbol and you want identity from the routine that you have. In second, it's say, no, you're so deep in love that you cannot just think about any other guilt in the round, which means we can either buy the first pain that they run in the round, that is to say that you actively just want certain sort of meaning with this. We don't think this meaning has significant amount of value because this meaning over time is likely going to be fade, because this debate does not happen right now. This debate also stands in instances when he do have more ups and downs within life, where he do need a certain level of connection, which is likely going to exist specifically when he has lower paying jobs, because in future he's likely going to have less stability in general. The reason this is able to take it over opening opposition then is, even if you buy coming from opening opposition that you do love your wife to a much larger degree, we're unsure why this love is likely going to lead to you having a much better life in general. In the comparative, if you have someone to talk to, in a comparative, if you have someone that you can actively share a lot more feelings with them, we think this is likely someone that is much good, because there is a reciprocation of feeling that exists. In the absence of this, we think add more or add worse in future, your love is likely going to be much worse for that individual. Before I move on, I'm going to take option.
You can't assume that Irena is going to be good, because of which you won't try to change yourself. Opening government explicitly says that you will have the capacity and incentive to change yourself. You cannot like reject this premise then.
No. The idea here is that even if you want to change, this debate is not about Irena. But even if Irena is someone that is bad, we don't think he would actively go and have certain development relationship with you, because I've already established that she's someone that is likely have understanding a lot of instances. Theo. Okay, let's take what do win over OG. The reason behind that is quite simple. We think this is an active motion, and the characterization of an actor is specifically really essential in that debate in general. OG is fine in terms of pointing out that why specifically there are certain stuff that you need, that is maybe talk about that you take care about money, you can get a much better stability within Prague in general as well, but also you can just move on in a lot of instances. But what specifically I'm unsure of, why specifically all of this is something that matters to Joseph. CJ is the only bench that tells you why specifically with the characterization of Joseph, because he is someone that has suffered a lot in his life, specifically needs someone in life to begin with. The comparative is not what opening opposition and closing opposition wants to talk about. That is to say that you love your wife and you actively are crazy mad in love with one. The comparative is, do you actively need someone to come into your life in a lot of instances as well? You're likely not going to get someone in Denmark because of the reason that opening opposition. That is to say that in Denmark, you're going to remember your wife. But second, because the government is only team specifically giving you unique benefits coming from why specifically Irena is something that's likely going to be better for you, because we have second level of development that you're able to have, but also there are certain other benefits that you have that is specific capacity. There's something that's really important for which specifically some of the things in life. For all of these reasons.
I think for the last 30 seconds, we didn't hear you because of mic issues. Can you just repeat the last 30 seconds of your speech? So from 6:45.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm saying, is GovWeb able to repeat the last 60 seconds of their speech? I see it's no worries. Like, yeah, the last 30 seconds, the mic was a bit scuffed.
Okay, yeah, it fell off. Can you let me know what was the last thing that you probably clearly heard from me?
They were weighing against OG is the last thing that I had in general. So mostly in terms of like how the analysis from OG just applies across more generally, that you're able to prove all the stuff that this person has gone through and why that's important.
Okay, okay, just give me 1 second. The reason CG characterization is then more important within the round than any other thing that you have, specifically for Joseph, is not someone that is likely quite similar to other individuals that you have. It's likely someone that has been through a lot of suffering, which likely means he do need a shoulder to cry on. He do need someone that they can actively reciprocate these feelings. CG then uniquely tells you by having another individual that you can actively have certain rationale, or also by using info why this person is likely going to be much better, which OG is not able to prove. CG is able to tell you why this rational reciprocation specifically exists coming from this. The reason this is important, again, is because in the absence of this, OG analysis, again, is generalized. In CG specifically, you get the more specific actor analysis. That is important because in absence of this, we're unsure what Joseph specifically wants.
Thank the speaker for the great speech. I now invite the op-web to close out the debate as a whole. Here.
Hi, I just want to confirm if I'm audible.
Yep, you're audible.
My network is very bad, so I'm not going to turn on my camera. I just want to thank James for, just carrying me through in all the rounds. This is our second ESL break. Yeah, very happy that we've been at least able to try to achieve that. Yeah, thank you for David. I'm using her phone to do this speech right now. Thanks for Janet, who's hotspotting. Thanks for Ian Green, who tried to give me the phone, but it failed. We're trying to get it now to work. Yeah, debates a journey, so then we have to move. Yeah, go UG. I'm gonna say when I'm ready. If you have a POI, please, I'm gonna ask for it. Don't unmute. That's gonna just be very hectic for me. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna start on my next word. Let me just set my timer here. Okay, let me start on my next word. I think that in this debate, James is the only person who doesn't satisfy what Joseph wants, but satisfies what Joseph, who is a 40-year-old man, wants. I think the problem with most teams, and because this is a final, is that most teams always ignore what we call info slide engagement. The info slide already guides what specific things do fly in the debate. I'm going to start with the first thing. So, closing government rightly puts it that they don't know what Joseph wants in of itself. Unfortunately for them, the info slide does. Joseph is a 40-year-old now on his vacation from his low-paying job. So he is simply considering accepting a higher-paying job offer in Prague, not because necessarily he wants to spend more money, he wants to buy a Bugatti, but he simply wants peace and wants all other avenues to be able to, most likely be able to get this peace. He wants to rest, he wants to settle, he wants to find a community where he can be more calm, appreciated, and be able to walk the journey of life. He's a 40-year-old who has already walked this journey. He ran from Czechoslovakia to Denmark, running from the Soviet Union, for crying out loud. It's in the info slide. It shows you that he's already gone through a lot of things, conflict. He's gone through a lot of hassles to get money. He's gone through a lot of struggles in of itself. It shows you that the journey of his life to find love was also fulfilled when he found this wife and married them. The extent that he became delusional to now start having conversations with this woman, even when she's dead, visiting her favorite restaurants, like being able to maximize every single memory. He was not just living this memory, he was finishing and completing a stage of his life before he clocks 40 years in of itself. What this guy does is that he goes back to visit Prague, right, after the USSR, to see and go back to his roots, only to go back that his roots, his identity, everything there to him has been replaced by a freaking state that now no longer cares what his identity looks like. I think in this place, he meets, obviously, Irena, who simply has the frustration. They sleep together, and they are growing romantically interested. I think comprehension is very important here. Romantically interested does not mean deeply in love or very interested with this person. So sleeping with someone does not mean you're very in love. I think very many people do this hookup culture and a lot of most of these aspects. So what I'm proving here with the info that I've analyzed so far is a couple of things. The first thing I've been able to prove here is that closing government's case on what Joseph needs is far off the map. He's not looking for being able to have a specific happiness itself, but this is just basically factual. But also opening government loses this chart about having to why that he's very desperate to have this woman. He's so desperate to have Irene. It's just nostalgia, and James mechanizes to you, but also the info that gives it to you rightly. So this mitigates all the impacts that opening government is able to give you, but also mitigates all the closing government's delulu impacts on wanting to have this person so bad. Let's engage the economic clash, because I feel it's a very minor clash. I think the economic clash is very simple, and I'm going to resolve it this way. The first thing here to say is that these guys argue that he needs to be able to have money to get stability, so he needs to move to Prague. It's unclear to me why getting this high-paying job is going to become better. You're segregated in a place where people don't like you, you're freaking new, people don't know who you are. I don't understand why these people who don't know you now are going to give you privileges and extra benefits to be able to do that. At best, if you get this job, you're most likely going to be demoted. Why? Because there are people in Prague who they know, who have spent a long-lasting life more than you have, that they know that will probably be given this promotion over you in of itself. So this happens very much in governments. Tinubu's government. Evaluate Duterte in the Philippines, Gatwalders in the Netherlands. Look at his cabinet and most of the people he was able to select. Proximate people to him. It's unclear to me why in of itself this community will most likely be able to prioritize you. All benches on up fail to mechanize this. But even if you're able to argue and say that they're going to most likely be able to stay in Denmark and they're going to get low paying money, here's why this is not the case. This is just to extend on James's aspect as to why the economic aspect that you have in Denmark is enough. I'm going to argue more mechanisms why. You can ask for a raise if the pay job is very low. These guys already argue and rightly put it, opening government themselves, that there are proper laws in Denmark that protect your job. So it's basically a shaft on their own case. It proves to you that you can get a raise, you can get most of these jobs, but you can also economically diversify, do a gig economy, or find another ways of getting money. You can get money and be able to get happy to fund these particular trips in of itself. What have I proven here? If the economic aspect is the most important thing in that debate on opening and closing government, I proven to you why you most likely co-opt this benefit and be able to still maximize it without necessarily having to lose your identity and lose all the ties you have been able to develop in Denmark together. I think what I've been able to prove then is that the impacts on their state are given the skepticism that comes with the concept of the identity in of itself that you're most likely going to be able to have self-respect, the psychology of this individual to have removed this shock, to be able to have a new life, and like basically I think to be able to become better individuals in of themselves, right? It's the one. I think it's of itself, it means and implies that the actor in of themselves is most likely going to be happier even when they stay in Denmark. Why? They have the money and they can get the stability, and I'll show you why we co-opt this impact. This is very important for sponsorial material because opening operation never dwells to the concept of satisfying the economic clash, but most importantly, the government has never shown why it is more likely for them to be able to get these economic benefits and to maintain it. I proved to you why it's not going to be maintained. That's the responsive matter, but I also mechanized you why you must likely be able to do this. Before I saw James's extension as to show you why he's the most brilliant person in this debate, sure, opening government.
We prove that even if this connection is no longer, because we only met him once, is strong because the shared traumas that we have in common. So this means that this is a type of relationship that I want on the status quo, and we frame that this is the most important interest of the actor, having a relationship in a long term with a person that have a strong connection.
You don't have a strong connection with Irene. You slept with her and you're just romantically interested. It's nostalgia. You simply wanted to fuck, and now you've been able to get what you wanted. You want to know her better. That doesn't create reason enough for you to want to go to Prague and understand the family. And this is why James's extension becomes relevant. What are you living in Denmark? You're living in the family of this woman you loved so much. You have an obligation to these individuals, like James tells you. But this community can most likely be able to give you safety, can most likely be able to give you a sense of community, understanding, well-being. They can be able to compensate and fill the void that this woman who died was most likely able to live in of itself. And I want us to understand this argument, this clash. It's very important that the goal of you going to Prague is to fill this hole, to fill this void that your wife left. The community and James shows you why this void is filled better on our side, or you most likely get settlement. Feel more calm with people that understand you, people that have known you for years. Every time your wife has been bringing you for Thanksgiving, being able to bring you for other occasions, other parties. These are people that know you, respect you. They've taken you to their parties, meet all their friends. So if it's financial, they can still lobby money for you. If it's social and emotional and psychological, they can still most likely go to be able to help you. What have I been able to prove to you here? That if it's about closure, we get more closure on our side. But the other thing I've been able to most likely prove to you, and this is why it's becoming very important, if it's the economic aspect, We co-opt it on so many levels. What does that then mean for the rest of the debate? Is that for benches, we're able to co-opt their benefits, but also amplify them and maximize them on a larger aspect. If it's talking about opening opposition, we show you why community is the most proximate thing. How community fills this void. Because opening oppositions, I want us to understand, their counterfactual is premised on being able to be stable for Irene.
It's time. Henry, it's time.
The most ultimate thing, but most likely I show you why this becomes the most important clash we are proud to win from closing opposition here.
And the speaker for the great speech, and I thank everyone for what was a great round. I invite speakers to cross floor, shake hands, and you'll find out the results in the closing ceremony.
How do we shake hands?
Thank you for a lovely debate.
Henry, can you leave?
Can we also turn off the recording?